don't know. Sometimes I think I should be more nervous than I am, because I don't think I don't feel very nervous. I mean, sometimes I'm like, oh wow, this is big, this is real, but I really feel like it's going to be okay, and it'll be exactly what it needs to be, and I know that natural births have statistically a better outcome and less likely to need interventions, and I just really trust in my ability. We've been doing this for, since the dawn of time. We know, our bodies know how to give birth.
Hoped to have a home birth with a midwife, and Ari was breech. We tried a lot of things in utero to encourage her to turn, but she was persistent, and I was breech, my mom was breech, so we knew there'd be a good chance of that. And midwives are, in New Mexico anyway, I don't know how it is elsewhere, are not permitted to do a breech home delivery. So, and most physicians do a cesarean just as a matter of routine for breech delivery. So that was the hardest thing, I think, for us, was coming to terms with the fact that we not only were going to likely have to give up the natural home birth, but also probably have to do a cesarean. And we were ready in theory to do that, but actually ultimately the labor was so fast that by the time we got to the hospital, I was complete and baby was ready to come out. And so a lot of the nurses there helped us to advocate for ourselves, and we did a trial, what we were calling a trial natural delivery, with the physician ready to do a cesarean. So we were actually in the surgery suite, but attempting a natural delivery, and that's what we did. Out she came, bottom first.
When I really started midwifery intensely in the early 80s, had I projected into the future, I would have thought by 20 years from now, half of women will have their babies at home. Because it's such a different experience. The woman is in control, not the system being in control. And hospital births, even at their best, have a certain ritual format, I guess you might say.
I would have liked to have done a home birth, but it kind of made me nervous that if something went wrong, it would be quite a drive to a hospital. So I think if we're living in town for the next birth, I will do a home birth, especially after this.
I had a hospital birth, which I went back and forth on up until a couple weeks beforehand. I wanted to be at home ultimately, but I probably would have ended up in the hospital because I had to be induced. I had my water broke, but then I didn't go into labor. And I waited. Yes, I waited about 18 hours, and then finally they gave me Pitocin.
Words of comfort. I think we all have our own lessons to learn in birth and our own paths. And there's no one right way to have a baby. I mean, to me, to have a natural birth is the ideal, but it's not the only way. I mean, medications and techniques that exist are life-saving. And it's not 200 years ago where either you do it or you die. So I think we have many paths and many lessons to learn from our births. I don't know that that's any particular comfort, but I think it's a truth.
Having a doula was amazing. I mean, I don't know how I would have done it without a doula, to be honest, and done it meaning without pain medicine.
The placenta didn't detach from my uterus, and so the actual birthing of him was totally fine, but then delivering the placenta was not so fine. That was horribly painful. So compared to the birth seems not as bad compared to that.
As home birth midwives, we don't carry painkillers. That's one of the agreements, that if you have a home birth, it's an unmedicated birth. Because there is no absolutely safe medication. Everything affects the baby to some degree.
It was hard, and strangers kind of coming in the room and every once in a while, and it was hard to kind of get into what my doula called an intuitive space, because everything was you know, things were beeping, strangers were coming in. It was just more medicalized, I think.
I mean, simply being in the hospital is an intervention because it's an unfamiliar environment. And you know, as a dog person, that if your dog is having puppies, she's probably in the back of the closet. But if you take your dog and go to Kmart and expect her to have puppies, she's going to freeze and it won't happen. So simply taking a woman out of her familiar environment is already an intervention.
When it came down to, I think, the really hard time, the transition part, the hardest part of the labor, my body just knew what to do, and then that kind of, I just, you know, all the training I had done was irrelevant in some ways. I just made up my own breathing and I just went into it.
If my daughter were pregnant, and I hope someday she will be, I think my greatest advice to her would be trust yourself, trust your inner wisdom, eat well, get exercise, be happy, be outdoors, but trust yourself, because this body that's growing the baby has thousands of years of wisdom how to birth that baby. And it shall be done.
But now, having been through it, I know that I can do it, and I'd love to do it at home.